name is Graham, of course, and I've always enjoyed photography. I've really enjoyed speaking with other people, but mostly, of course, most of my photographs are taken without the other people realising it. I certainly don't pose them. And there's a lovely, wonderful world out there of meaning, and it should be in every picture you take. There should be a reason why you've taken it. And when you get the print later, there might even be more in it than what you first imagined. But it's very much a pleasure. And I know I have an exhibition up at a local coffee shop at the moment. It's been there for 4 years. Nearly every Saturday I'll go and sit there and I make sure I converse with somebody or a table of people. I just say a simple thing like, "Are you looking after my photograph?" And we've had the most wonderful conversations that people really want to know, you know, what's happening in them. And I've enjoyed that pleasure. It's really kept my mind busy and kept me growing older gracefully, I think. Well, many years ago, my younger brother Sid joined the newly formed camera club at the grammar school. And it wasn't in formation when I was there, but I was secretary by that time. I was secretary of Toowoomba's largest tennis club, and I was chairman of a committee in the choral society that had to keep all the young people busy between choir practices so we wouldn't lose them to other activities. So I was very busy. And he joined this photographic club at the grammar school, and within a week he brought a print home. I thought, well, that would take weeks. I was very impressed, and I thought, boy, I can use that with my tennis fixtures. Just photograph the teams and put them up, and there they are, set. So I joined the local Toowoomba Photographic Society and became involved in their activities, and that's how I more or less got going. Our local members wanted to see what the overseas photographers were doing. So I applied to America for American approval for exhibitions in Toowoomba, because American approval was sought after worldwide, because an acceptance in an American approved international, for example, gained you a point towards their honours, which were very highly sought after in those days. So we got permission to run them, and I was chairman. We ran 6 in Toowoomba from 1960 to 1972. And by that stage, all the members were fairly worn out, and they said, "Oh, Graham, will you give us a break?" So I stopped them, and almost immediately, I had a contact from a group of photographers in Sydney, and they said, "Look, Graham, you were chairman of 6 American-approved internationals. You must know all the rules. Why don't you set up an Australian system?" So I formed a committee to set up our honour system and our exhibition system. Took 10 years. I sent my work to all 30 countries, mainly to get their entry forms and all their regulations, so I could line up a system that would work for Australia and for them. And that's what kept me very, very busy over all those years. Looking back, Bert Andrews was the first president, and he was setting out to increase the activities of the society. and they made me chairman of the print division early in the piece. And then later on I became president too for 3 years for a term. and I had this committee, and eventually all the rules and regulations were approved. We had this system set up for Australia. And by that time I was well and truly involved in sending my work away to different internationals. One of my favourite memories is John Williams, who was a very active historian and lecturer in those days. He sent me a Pentax 35mm SLR camera and 3 lenses, which I had to pay for. But he said, Graham, I want you to discover the world of the 28mm lens. And I used that for 35 years. That was just a beautiful lens to use in the type of work I was doing. And on all these different activities, and I used it so much and enjoyed it. And I wrote to him and I said, let me step one great step closer to the real world. And it was just a matter, he just wanted for me to see the way it treated the subject matter. I think we covered a fair range of subject matter. There were more people out and about then, so I'd say there was more people photography than pictorial work. And we had regular field days and intercity activities, and it was very busy. We all enjoyed it, and it was you know, very full activity. Well, you made me feel guilty asking that, because I never went to bed till about 2 in the morning. But my younger son, he used to go to, when he started work, he'd be up till 3 in the morning. And I'd say, you should get to bed. And he'd say, Dad, you know who taught me how to do this. And pretty well every night I'd be down in the dark room, and some of the younger family might be with me, and that's why I stuck with black and white too, because some of the colour chemicals were very poisonous. If you breathed them in much, they'd affect your chest. So I kept with the black and white, and I put a lot of hours into it. I know when I see my prints now, I think, how did I ever do so many? But I did them. And I did an engineering course at the same time, and I certainly kept myself busy. I think that's why I've got to this age, because I just kept busy. Yes, well...
Perhaps this one next to you, the one with the man?
Yes. Nearly always in my younger years, I took my family with me. I never forgot them. They had to be part of my photography, and mostly with the children, my wife and I'd say, where do you want to go today? And we took them to wherever they wanted to go, and we had wonderful, enjoyable days. And this particular one down the Gold Coast, that young man was talking to my 3 children, and when they'd announced the name of one of the contestants in the Sun Girl quest, he would give my children some idea of what chance she had of winning. For example, he'd say, she's too fat or she's too thin. My children were enjoying it, they were laughing, and all the time that was going on, I was taking these pictures of it, was showing all these wonderful expressions and a great background, and I enjoy that, photographing those people. Well, it would be people. You see, I had a big advantage in being born into a singing family. My father ran a session on the radio for 21 years, and Mum played the piano. We all sang. And of course, a lot of those songs have got wonderful meanings in them. And you don't know what effect they have on your work. And I was photographing these three young ladies not that long ago. One of them had a rather square-shaped mouth, and I thought to myself, now there's a sobbing note. And I thought, now why did I think that? That's a line of a lyric that I know. So I decided I would put that lyric into pictures. And when I started, I found I already had them in my pictures. That automatically my subconscious mind was introducing a theme when I was taking it consciously. And it was all there, the whole lyric. I found pictures for every line of that lyric. And so I think that the early days there, being born in with a lot of singers was a big influence without even knowing it. I did join the choir at the Australia Sings, and I don't know whether I'm really good enough for it, but they want me there. And they're keen to have me because there's not very many men. I did sing at a function recently. There was 3 men and 30 women. But fortunately they selected all easier pieces and we coped with it all right. But no, we still meet regularly, and I love the choral singing. My younger brother, he was a great singer. I used to say if he went overseas, he'd be snapped up by the opera companies. And so we had a lot of pleasure from that. Well, this particular print, this was at the Gold Coast, of course, and the young people there in their latest attire. And I fronted up to this young lady, and I couldn't sort of do it on the sly. I had to just be there very obviously. And she said to me, "What are you doing, mate?" And I said, "Look, you got no idea. There's about 40 photographers coming behind me. When they come around that corner and see you with that haircut, and they will want to photograph you." Well, a lot of them were giving her $10 notes, and she made a lot of money out of that day. And a lot of people photographed her, and she was a good subject. Well, this one, I saw this young lady with a rather sad face in behind all these beautiful bathing beauties, and I thought, man, there's a nice contrast. And I titled it, Perhaps Next Year. And that was one of the prints they put up the opening of the new Gold Coast gallery recently. When I went in there was a big group of people all around this particular picture. It catches people's imagination, and they like looking at it and feeling it. One other photographic judge, when he was discussing it, he spoke basically about one of these bathing beauties, But there's all those little stories going on. You just got to be observant and ready. Well, I didn't do it as much as shooting from the eye, but particularly now with the 28mm lens, you had a good idea of exactly what area was involved in the picture. So you'd move yourself into a position where you knew the subject was well and truly in the frame, and you'd just quietly press the button on the camera. You could be looking the other way. But a 28mm lens gave you such a lovely depth of focus and a wide angle that it was easy to shoot from the hip. I enjoyed it. Well, this is the first book, and I thought it took me a couple of years to get all those pictures together. I divided it up into chapters, and I still enjoy looking at it. And a lady phoned me up from Wales and said, "I've got your Touch Me book over here." And I said, "That's amazing." She said, "Look," she said, "quickly, pack 2 up and send to the Royal Photographic Society," which I did. And a few weeks later, I had a letter back from the Royal saying how much they enjoyed the book, and they awarded me a fellowship, which was a surprise because I never thought I'd ever have a fellowship at the Royal, but this book. And I still find a lot of interest, and it was offset printed in Brisbane, so I had a big stock of them. And mainly just recently I'd give one away at the markets here every Saturday morning, and because it's a coffee table book, I wouldn't produce anything else. And I still enjoy looking at it, and people tell me they just put it on their coffee table in the lounge, and when any visitors come, they let them thumb through it. But there are some nice, I enjoy the pictures that are in it. Yes, I think if you think your work is saying something special, you should put it out there for other people so they can learn from it. And you try and find a meaning in everything to take, but there's so much involved. I try and tell people how to enjoy taking pictures. For example, if you see 2 elderly people in a deep conversation, you usually can walk up, but don't look at them. You've already taken the picture in your mind. Might be Queen Victoria or something on the statue behind them. So you walk up pretending you're not even looking at them, but your camera's ready, and you just take a picture. They don't even know, but you get them unposed, and that's important, to have that lovely natural look of people. And some photographers can do that very well, but most ladies I talk to, they're a little bit concerned about photographing other people. And I said, well, it's a matter of becoming involved in the scene. You just don't walk up to someone and put your camera in front of their face. But you find a reason why you should be there and take an interest in things, and you just casually take a photo, and it's quite exciting, I think. It's given me a great interest, and I've always enjoyed, mainly through my singing, I think, more than anything, enjoyed finding a meaning in them. because some of the songs I sing, every line is like a line of like a title of a photograph. I've always enjoyed being with people. I've been involved with people all my life. If it wasn't one thing or another, I played tennis fixtures, I swam in men's swimming fixtures, and so I've always been very much involved in other people and enjoyed their company, and I used to try and just pick that little bit of essence out of every scene and make sure you do it. You know, it's all right talking about it, but you've got to be out there and doing it. And it gave me a lot of pleasure. Yes, the OAM was awarded for setting up that honour system and exhibition system for Australia. And the Australian Photographic Society applied for that, and that's what that was for. People say, who is that, Graham? I'd say, I haven't got a clue. I was just involved in what was happening, and I certainly wanted to be a natural shot. I don't like posing anyone. They don't look as good. You should try for unposed, very natural work with a bit of meaning. I know John Williams early in the piece, he used to say if you got up and spoke about composition, you didn't know what you were talking about, that you had to put the meaning first and then the composition. But if you got up and spoke about the layout of the picture and not about the meaning, he used to say you don't really know what you're saying. But I definitely went out to take them unposed. Yes, that's what I was using a longer focal length lens before that 28, but that 28 was a beautiful lens to use. I've still got it, but it did allow you to get right up into the middle of things, and everything was in focus. You can tell through my pictures which ones were taken just by looking at the backgrounds. The few that were taken with the long lens, they'd be just a fuzzy background, but with the 28mm, they'd be lovely and sharp. So they were part of the picture. I'm using a Nikon F4, which I've used for years, and it's a lovely lens, but I think it's a 70-200. Not as good for people as a 28, but I know recently I do 5 rolls of film in the tank that takes the 5 rolls, and I hung them up in my drying cabinet. There were 5 rolls of perfect exposure that camera brought out. Not to say the pictures were marvellous, but the exposures were absolutely perfect. Well, it's a difficult question to answer. I look at the digital photos up against mine and I can't see a lot of difference. People say, oh, they're different. Well, there's not a lot of difference. I think that I was set up for film. I've got the dark room, and I didn't get involved in the electronics. I just stuck with the film because I knew what I was doing and I kept with it. And it seemed to give me the results I wanted. Well, I'm dividing it into 5 chapters, but they're nearly all involving people. Like there's people and another chapter called Beyond. That means beyond natural thought. thinking, you've got to think a bit further into what the picture's all about, and there's another section on the Gold Coast, and it's mainly all people more than anything that and even in my places section there's people in most of the pictures, but that's what I enjoy. Yes, that young lady worked at the local chemist shop just near where I live, and that's her swimming in a pool, and as the face comes up, no, I think I took that two separate negatives. Now I come to think deeply into it. One of the pattern of the water, and usually when I had someone to photograph, I'd put a black background up so I'd just have a face, and then I'd superimpose it, two negatives together, and that's what I've done. Her face is one negative and the water is the other negative. And there's a few of mine that have done that way. And that's how it is. Always carried this black card. I didn't carry it, but I had it at hands, a black card, just so that I could get a portrait, so I could put it in somewhere. Well, I was walking along a street in Balmain in Sydney, and I came to this open window, and I looked in the open window, which was right against the footpath, and what I saw there is this picture. I was amazed that this wall inside the house was sort of reflecting all this, and I made sure I looked around and I couldn't see myself showing up in it, so I thought, I'll take that. That's my eldest son in the photograph, but I often look at that and I'm amazed at what's in it and how the light did that. That's just how it was. Now, I think photography has always been very much in the forefront in my mind, and looking at that straight away, I thought, now how could that photograph? And sometimes people say, you must be walking around, Graham, looking at everything in a rectangle. And I said, well, I probably do to a certain extent and don't realise it. But, and when you do your own prints in the darkroom, it's amazing that just by moving your enlarging paper, you know, a couple of centimetres one way or another can make all the difference in the world. Just where the corners are and that, you've got complete control when you do it yourself.